I was 32 years old when I found the bank statements in my mother's desk drawer. I wasn't snooping. She'd asked me to find her insurance papers while she recovered from knee surgery. But there they were. Tuition payments to USC, graduate school deposits, a study abroad program in Italy, all made out to my younger sister, Sloane. Over 8 years, my mother had paid nearly $200,000 for her education. When I was 18, she told me we couldn't afford community college. She said I'd have to work full-time and figure it out myself. I remember crying in the guidance counselor's office, begging for scholarship help, while my mother bought Sloane a car for her 16th birthday. Looking back, I wish I had understood sooner that love in my family wasn't divided equally. It was given entirely to one child and withheld from the other. I grew up in a small house in Riverside, California. My father left when I was 7, and Sloane was 3. My mother worked as a receptionist at a dental office, and we didn't have much money, or so I was told. I learned early to ask for nothing. I wore hand-me-downs from neighbors. I babysat for cash. I never got to play sports because my mother said we couldn't afford the fees. But Sloane had piano lessons, dance recitals, and a closet full of new clothes. I told myself it was because she was younger, cuter, easier to love. I made myself small to avoid conflict. I studied at the kitchen table while my mother braided Sloane's hair and told her she was destined for greatness. I believed that if I was just good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, my mother would see me too. When I graduated high school, I had a 3.8 GPA and a dream of becoming a nurse. I applied to the local community college and got accepted. My mother sat me down at the kitchen table and said we couldn't afford it. She said I'd have to get a job and pay my own way. I was devastated, but I didn't argue. I got a job at a grocery store, then a second job cleaning offices at night. I took one class at a time, paying out of pocket. It took me 6 years to get my associate's degree. During that time, Sloane graduated high school and announced she was going to USC. My mother threw her a party. I asked how we were paying for it, and my mother snapped at me, told me it was none of my business. I felt ashamed for even asking. Sloane thrived at USC. She joined a sorority, studied abroad in Rome, and got a master's degree in communications. My mother posted photos of every milestone on Facebook. She drove 4 hours each way to visit Sloane on weekends. Meanwhile, I worked myself into exhaustion, finished my associate's degree, and enrolled in a nursing program at a state school. I paid for everything myself. My mother never came to my pinning ceremony. She said she had to help Sloane move into her new apartment. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was strong enough to do it alone. But deep down, I felt invisible. I felt like I was fighting for scraps of affection, while my sister feasted on unconditional love. After nursing school, I got a job at a hospital in Ontario. The work was hard, but I loved it. I met a man named Declan, a paramedic with kind eyes and a steady presence. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt valued. Declan listened to me. He celebrated my small victories. He didn't compare me to anyone. When I told him about my family, he looked at me with sadness and said I deserved better. I brushed it off. I was used to making excuses for my mother. But the truth was starting to crack through the surface. I was beginning to realize that my mother's love had always come with conditions, and I had never met them. Sloane moved to Los Angeles after grad school and got a job at a marketing firm. She lived in a trendy apartment in Silver Lake and posted photos of brunches and rooftop parties. My mother visited her constantly. She'd drive down for the weekend and come back with stories about Sloane's amazing life. She never asked about mine. I invited her to dinner once, hoping she'd meet Declan and see that I was doing well. She canceled at the last minute because Sloane needed help picking out furniture. I sat in the restaurant alone, staring at my phone, and felt the familiar ache of being second choice. Declan found me in the parking lot afterward, and I cried in his arms. He told me I didn't owe my mother anything. I wasn't ready to believe him yet. Then came the day I found the bank statements. My mother had asked me to come over and help her organize paperwork after her knee surgery. I opened the desk drawer, looking for her insurance papers, and saw a folder labeled Sloan, Education. Inside were years of tuition receipts, loan cosigns, and transfers from my mother's savings account. I sat on the floor of her office and read every page. She had paid for Sloane's bachelor degree, her master's degree, her study abroad, her sorority fees, her apartment deposits. She had given Sloane everything. And she had looked me in the eye and said she couldn't afford to help me with community college. I felt something break inside me. Not sadness, not anger, just a cold, clarifying numbness. I didn't confront her right away. I took photos of the statements with my phone and put everything back exactly where I found it. I went home and showed my husband. He stared at the documents in disbelief. He asked me what I wanted to do. I didn't know yet, but I knew something had shifted. I wasn't going to keep pretending anymore. I wasn't going to keep sacrificing myself for a mother who had never seen me as worth investing in. For the first time in my life, I let myself feel the full weight of the betrayal, and I started planning.
I didn't cut my mother off. I didn't yell or accuse. I just started pulling back. I stopped calling her every week. I stopped inviting her to things. I was polite when she reached out, but I didn't go out of my way anymore. She didn't seem to notice. She was too busy with Sloane. I focused on my own life. I married Declan in a small courthouse ceremony. My mother didn't come. She said she had a work event. Sloane sent a generic congratulations text. I didn't care anymore. I had Declan, I had my career, and I had my own sense of peace. I was building a life that didn't revolve around earning my mother's approval. 2 years passed. I worked hard, got promoted to charge nurse, and bought a house with Declan. My mother's health started declining. She developed diabetes and high blood pressure. Her knee never fully healed, and she started needing more help. She called me more often, asking me to take her to appointments, pick up prescriptions, and help with bills. I did it all without complaint. I was the dependable one, after all. Sloane was too busy with her career in LA. She rarely came home. My mother would sigh on the phone and say Sloane was just so busy, so important. I said nothing. I just kept showing up. My mother's condition worsened. She had a small stroke and needed more intensive care. The hospital discharged her with a recommendation for assisted living or in-home care. She called me, panicked, and begged me to help her figure it out. I told her I'd handle everything. I researched facilities, toured them, and asked questions. I found one about 40 minutes away called Greystone Gardens. It was clean, affordable, and had decent reviews. The staff was professional, but not warm. The visiting hours were strict, and family members weren't allowed to stay overnight or linger in resident rooms unsupervised. It was exactly what I needed. I told my mother it was the best option in our budget. She trusted me. She signed the papers. I moved her into Greystone Gardens on a Tuesday morning. She cried and held my hand, thanking me for being such a good daughter. I smiled and told her I'd visit regularly. I set up her room, labeled her belongings, and made sure she was settled. Then I drove home and exhaled for the first time in weeks. I had done my duty. I had taken care of her. But I had done it on my terms. I wasn't going to sacrifice my peace anymore. I wasn't going to let her lean on me emotionally while giving Sloane all the grace. Sloane didn't visit for the first 2 months. She was too busy with work, she said. My mother called her constantly, begging her to come. Sloane made excuses. My mother started calling me, crying, asking why Sloane wouldn't visit. I said I didn't know. I didn't offer to intervene. I visited my mother once a month, stayed for exactly 1 hour, and left. I was polite but distant. She started to notice. She'd ask me why I seemed different, why I didn't stay longer. I'd say I was busy with work. She'd look at me with confusion, like she couldn't understand why I wasn't bending over backward for her anymore. Then Sloane's life started unraveling. She lost her job during a company restructure. Her boyfriend broke up with her. She had to move out of her expensive apartment and crashed with friends. She called my mother constantly, sobbing, asking for money. My mother had nothing to give. She was living on Social Security and savings, most of which had gone to Sloane's education. Sloane grew resentful. She snapped at my mother on the phone, accusing her of not helping enough. My mother was heartbroken. She called me, crying, asking what she did wrong. I listened quietly. I didn't offer comfort. I just said, sometimes people show you who they are when things get hard. Sloane finally visited my mother after 4 months. She stayed for 20 minutes, complained about the facility, and left. My mother was devastated. She called me that night, sobbing, saying she didn't understand why Sloane was so cold. I told her that people treat you the way you've taught them to treat you. She went quiet. I think she started to understand, but it was too late. The damage was done. Sloane stopped calling altogether. My mother was alone with her choices. I kept visiting once a month. I brought groceries, handled paperwork, and made sure she was cared for, but I didn't give her my heart. I didn't give her the forgiveness she wanted. One day, she asked me directly why I seemed so distant. I looked at her calmly and said I'd found the bank statements 2 years ago. I told her I knew about every dollar she'd spent on Sloane. I told her I knew she'd lied to me about not being able to afford my education. She started to cry, tried to explain, said she thought Sloane needed more help. I didn't argue. I just said I hope it was worth it. Then I left. My mother tried calling me after that, but I didn't answer as often. I stayed consistent with my monthly visits, but I never stayed long. She grew quieter, more withdrawn. The staff told me she didn't have many visitors. I nodded and said that was unfortunate. Sloane never came back. She moved to San Diego and started over. She didn't call my mother on her birthday. My mother spent the holidays alone in the facility. I sent a card. I didn't visit. I was busy building my own family, my own traditions, my own life. Years passed. My mother's health continued to decline. She developed dementia and didn't always recognize me. I still visited once a month. I made sure she was clean, fed, and safe, but I didn't give her my heart. I didn't give her the forgiveness she wanted. One day she asked me directly why I seemed so distant. I looked at her calmly and said I'd found the bank statements 2 years ago. I told her I knew about every dollar she'd spent on Sloane. I told her I knew she'd lied to me about not being able to afford my education. She started to cry, tried to explain, said she thought Sloane needed more help. I didn't argue. I just said, I hope it was worth it. Then I left. My mother tried calling me after that, but I didn't answer as often. I stayed consistent with my monthly visits, but I never stayed long. She grew quieter, more withdrawn. The staff told me she didn't have many visitors. I nodded and said that was unfortunate. Sloane never came back. She moved to San Diego and started over. She didn't call my mother on her birthday. My mother spent the holidays alone in the facility. I sent a card. I didn't visit. I was busy building my own family, my own traditions, my own life. Years passed. My mother's health continued to decline. She developed dementia and didn't always recognize me. I still visited once a month. I made sure she was clean, fed, and safe, but I didn't give her my heart. I didn't give her the forgiveness she wanted. One day she asked me directly why I seemed so distant. I looked at her calmly and said I'd found the bank statements 2 years ago. I told her I knew about every dollar she'd spent on Sloane. I told her I knew she'd lied to me about not being able to afford my education. She started to cry, tried to explain, said she thought Sloane needed more help. I didn't argue. I just said, I hope it was worth it. Then I left. My phone was in my hand, and I reached out online.